Alrighty. So, my name is Paul Craig. I'm a principal security consultant at securityassessment.com in Auckland, New Zealand. Published security author, security researcher, devoted hacker, yada yada. If you have any feedback or comments regarding my talk, feel free to give me an email, paul@ha.cked.net. Otherwise, just find me afterwards and have a chat. I'm very welcome to talking to people, especially about the subject. I also have a website where you can read about my current projects and things I'm researching, ha.cked.net. Okay, what am I going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about hacking internet kiosks. I'm going to talk about what is an internet kiosk and the kiosk software security model, essentially how these products work and how the kiosk model functions. Then I'm going to just start talking about vulnerabilities in kiosk software. The majority of my talk is actually on vulnerabilities. I have a lot of vulnerabilities to disclose. I have vulnerabilities in both kiosk software and in the kiosk software security model. Essentially, I'm going to teach every single person in this room how you can hack a Windows kiosk in less than 120 seconds. Guaranteed all your money back. I'm going to release a bunch of tools. I'm going to release a bunch of techniques so you can basically go away after this talk and just start doing it. And then I'm going to do some live demos. I'm actually going to hack 2 live kiosks on stage. I'm going to try and hack them as fast as possible. Maybe if someone has a stopwatch, you can try and time me. Hopefully I have time. Yeah, and also more ODA than you can shake a stick at. That's the whole point of the hackathon, right? Okay, so one of the downsides to living in New Zealand is the fact that I spend a hell of a lot of time in airports and on airplanes. I spend between 200 and 300 hours a year, in fact. Now, last year, I was sitting in Hong Kong. I was sitting in Hong Kong for 8 hours. I was sitting at my gate. My plane was ready to arrive. And I was bored. I was bored as hell. I was like, well, what do? I've looked at the duty-free. I've looked at the perfumes. I don't really know what to do anymore. And I noticed this kiosk in the distance. I was like, oh, there's a kiosk. I noticed there were a queue of people waiting to use the kiosk. And the hacker inside of me said, well, I'm a bit bored. I wonder if I could hack that kiosk. I thought, I probably could. I'm a professional hacker. I'm sure I could bust that kiosk. Then I realized, I've never actually tried. And then I started thinking, right then and there, I was thinking about kiosks. And I realized that, they're actually quite popular. You see kiosks, especially internet kiosks, in a lot of places, yet I rarely read about kiosk security white papers or publications on kiosks. People don't release information, or people don't really research this. So I saw this prime opportunity where basically we have something that's popular with poor security visibility. It becomes a really prime attack target. That means no one else is looking there. So I said right then and there, I'm going to become the fucking king of internet kiosk hacking. I want to become the best in the world. I want to find every single trick to hack an internet kiosk. So when I got back to New Zealand, I really kept my eyes open. I started looking at all the kiosks that I saw around my country. I found them, you can look at the list. I found them everywhere, Most public locations seem to have an internet kiosk these days. I think this is primarily due to the price of technology. You can use like an old P2, an old P3, and install a bit of software, and you've got a kiosk. So people are deploying these kiosks everywhere. Now, my initial observations of the kiosks. From a hardware perspective, the kiosks are tough. These things are built really quite securely. They usually have either fiberglass, steel, or MDF cases, thick MDF. If they use MDF or wood, you'll find that the computer is actually inside a steel cage inside it. This stops physical intruders, opportunistic hackers, coming up with a hole saw and a drill and essentially boring through the MDF and getting access to the computer. These devices are built so that they do not trust, you and me, the average user, people walking up to the kiosk. From a hardware perspective, these things are pretty solid and pretty damn tough. And they're usually padlocked, and you can't access the floppy drive or the USB, or they're pretty secure looking. From a software point of view, the majority of kiosks actually run commercial Windows software. I do acknowledge that Linux and BSD kiosks exist. However, Windows is far more popular. I think this is because the people that are deploying kiosks may not have the resources or the man hours to invest in setting up or learning how to use Linux. Practically everyone knows how to use Windows. Now, there are actually 44 commercial Windows kiosk products on the market. They're marketed as, you can turn that old PC into instant revenue. So they're really quite popular. You buy this $59 shareware product, install it on a fresh XP system, you got a kiosk, and it makes you money. The kiosk software industry is actually a multi-million-dollar industry per year. It's a pretty growing, booming software industry. Now, all kiosk Windows software, essentially, all they do is they skin Windows. It's Windows and it's Internet Explorer, but it looks really funny. So you'll find the Kiosk browser is actually based on WinHTTP.dll or MSINet.ocx. These are the standard Internet Explorer library controls. So essentially you can say, the kiosks are Windows and Internet Explorer, and they just look a bit weird. Okay, so the first thing I realized was that kiosk software is really my best attack vector. I'm not going to be able to get into an airport carrying a crowbar, a drill, and all these things. Hardware attacks, they're just not going to work in a public space. I need to attack the software. What I need to be able to do is I need to be able to walk up to any internet kiosk and pop shell quickly. I want to pop shell in less than 2 minutes. I don't want to be standing in front of the kiosk for like an hour, 2 hours, trying to hack it, because that's going to look really suspicious. What I did was I started sort of focused and methodically testing kiosk software. I spent 16 months researching kiosk products. And what I did was I virtualized 10 of the world's most popular Windows kiosk products. And I researched methods of compromising each kiosk, and then I developed a kiosk attack methodology. I really had startling results. When I started my research, I didn't expect that 100% of the kiosks would break. Actually, they all broke really quite easily. I just found so many different methods of making them break. Okay, the kiosk security model. Okay, so kiosk software security is implemented in 2 approaches. Firstly, the kiosk will try to reduce available host functionality. This is a native Windows functionality that can be used maliciously. Things like the command prompt has been disabled. The disable CMD reg key, that'll be set. Maybe file downloads will be disabled through the IE security zone policy, so you can't download files when you're on the kiosk. Relatively sensible things. And secondly, you have what's called graphically jailing, or graphic jailing. So you'll find that the kiosk browser you're actually using is this full-screen application that covers all of the available input vectors. You don't have anything that you can click on that will give you back to Windows. You're sort of stuck inside this weird, gimpy kind of application. The start bar and tray menu are usually removed or hidden from view, so that there's no way you can click on it and go to File, Program, Accessories, and sort of escape out of it that way. Pretty much the only thing you can do is browse the web. Well, that's the only thing you can click on is browse the web. As an example, this is Site Kiosk. As you can tell, the start bar at the bottom, it looks pretty similar to Windows, right? It looks kind of similar, it's got the same kind of colors, but it's very different. The tray menu is also completely custom. You only have one option there, start a new window. There's no way you can really escape out of that browser window. You're trapped inside the kiosk browser. There's another example, this is Netstop Kiosk. This is actually Windows, but it's just completely custom. You have a very custom taskbar. The kiosk application is actually ran as a full-screen desktop, no ability to close the browser, you can't get back to Windows, and it only permits internet browsing. Okay, so kiosk browsers proactively monitor your activity. They've taken into account sort of malicious people trying to hack the kiosk through the software. So most kiosks, or actually all kiosk products, contain multiple blacklists of prohibited activity, things that the kiosk vendors deem as malicious. If you try and do something sneaky, the kiosk will stop you. So for example, with a Site Kiosk, if you open up the kiosk browser and you try and browse to C:// a little box pops up saying, accessing this URL is prohibited. Access denied. You're stopped. Another thing kiosks do is they monitor all in-focus modal dialogues. So if you get a dialog box to pop up, maybe with a dialog title of Save File As, or Open With, or Confirm File Delete, or Print, basically functionality that the kiosk vendor doesn't want you to access, the kiosk software will send a WM close or a WM quit message to the dialog box. In other words, if you get a dialog box to pop up, it'll close a second later. There's nothing you can do. Kiosks also implement API hooking. So they'll hook native OS API calls which can be used maliciously. Things like kill process, get command line W, get command line A, alloc console. There's no way you can run cmd.exe if you can't call alloc console or use alloc console because you can't run a console application. The kiosk browser itself is usually ran in a high security zone. This means file downloads are disabled. Browser scripting is often disabled. Pop-ups are disabled. ActiveX, Java, all disabled. And there's usually also a watchdog timer, a general sort of process monitor that every 5 minutes or 4 minutes will enumerate all of the windows on the current kiosk and all the processes running and see if you're doing anything sneaky. See if you have cmd.exe running somehow, and then it'll kill everything, log you out, or just generally end your fun. Okay, the kiosks implement custom keyboard drivers, so they disable common Windows keyboard shortcuts. Like the Control, Shift, Escape, Alt-Tab. Usually find that all the modifier keys are unmapped. These are Control, Tab, Alt, Start, Function, F1 through to F12. Those keys do nothing. Or in the case of most kiosks, as you can see a picture of this keyboard just here, it doesn't actually have the keys. So they have a custom keyboard that doesn't have the keys. There's no way you can press Start because there's no fucking Start key. Usually have a custom mouse as well. It's a common trick. You have a custom mouse with no right-click button. You think about all the functionality you reduce in Windows without a right-click button. It really limits what you can do because there's no button. These are all methods of reducing functionality and basically controlling or implementing security. OK, so hacking kiosk software. Kiosk security model is based on reducing functionality, a limit functionality which can be used to escape the kiosk browser. So exploiting a kiosk requires us to invoke functionality. We want to cause applications or functionality to spawn, to pop up on screen. We want Windows just to pop up. Doesn't really matter anything. We want to invoke something which isn't part of the standard kiosk. And then hopefully, we can use the functionality we invoked to escape the kiosk jail, and then maybe spawn a command prompt, use the command prompt to kill the kiosk process, and get back to Windows. Fully escape the browser, and then we win. So kiosk security is implemented through blacklists. Now, blacklists by nature, as we know, are never 100%. You can never have a blacklist that covers every possible attack vector. We only need one method of escaping the kiosk jail. We only need one slight mistake or one slight miss in a blacklist in order to win. So let's say you find a kiosk in your local mall. Now, I actually I went for a bit of a kiosk hunt yesterday to try and find a kiosk, try and have a bit of a play with a kiosk. And I found one in a mall down here. Only there was a security guard standing right next to it. It was sort of positioned next to it. So someone told the Malaysian authorities that I was coming. Not cool, not cool. So anyway, let's say you find a kiosk in your local mall. It says, like, insert 10 ringgit for an hour of internet usage. The first thing you need to do is insert the money. This is actually a critical point, because all of my attack tricks require money insertion. I didn't find anything pre-money insertion. So this is one of those hacks where you actually have to pay in order to hack it. But it's a pretty good trade-off. It's a pretty good trade-off. So let's say you find you're trapped inside a kiosk browser. You only got one visible button to start browsing. So you start browsing. You're going to use the kiosk. Well, the first thing you want to try and do, and this is the first thing I thought of when I started pen testing kiosk, was, hey, I'm going to try and browse the local file system using the kiosk browser. As a Windows user, or as a local user on a Windows operating system, you are capable of browsing and navigating your file system, as you would expect. So kiosk software must explicitly block all attempts of locally browsing. Okay? Now, Windows is actually designed for idiots. Let's be honest here. It's designed for idiots. It's designed for fat-fingered, mistyping, your mother and your father. It's designed for people who don't know how to use a computer. So what you have in Windows are multiple ways of doing the exact same thing. Like this table I have here. All of these things will browse the local file system. I have file://ce:// I have file::ce:// I have %temp%. C://Windows\\. All of these things are different. So you can see now how a blacklist would actually start failing now. Because many of these kiosk products, they'll block the 5 most obvious ways of referencing your local file system, but they won't block everything. So you start to win. You can also use common dialogues to hack kiosks. So Windows contains common dialog libraries, things like saving a file, opening a file, selecting a file, and choosing a color. These are common dialogues that come from comdlg32.dll. Now, comdlg32.dll employs common Windows controls from comctl32.dll. Now, the file open and file save dialog contain what's called the file view control. Now, this file view control contains, well, actually full Explorer functionality. This is the same control that Explorer uses. If you launch Explorer and browse your file system, it's the exact same control that Explorer uses. So you can say that if you can get a file open dialog to pop up, you essentially have Explorer inside a dialog window. And this can be used to launch processes. So this is an example. Let's say you find a kiosk. You click every button, like systematically, every button, every icon, everything available on the page. Maybe there's a link somewhere to attach a file, like send an email to a friend, upload a file, maybe print a photo or something like that. If you can get a file open dialog to pop up, well, you just browse the file system with it here, as you can see in the first photo. And then the second one, you find cmd.exe, you right-click it, and then you say open. If you're in the case where you have a kiosk that only has a single left mouse click button. All you do is drag a DLL file onto the cmd.exe, and cmd.exe will spawn again. Pretty easy. You can also use the Internet Explorer image toolbar. So I said previously that a lot of these Internet kiosks are actually based on standard Internet Explorer libraries. Now, Internet Explorer libraries contain what's called this Internet Explorer image toolbar. It's a toolbar that hovers in the top left whenever you click a really large image. And the toolbar basically has 4 little icons. The first one lets you pop up a file save dialog. The second pops up a file print dialog. We've got a file mail to. And then the last one will actually spawn explorer.exe. So it's a pretty easy check. You go to a kiosk, you look for a really large image, you click it, and you see this toolbar pops up. The toolbar pops up, you're pretty much guaranteed to win. Because you can, common dialog, explorer. Okay, using the keyboard. Keyboard shortcuts can be used to access the host OS. So we can check if a custom keyboard driver is present. Are modifier keys enabled? Is this something that the kiosk has implemented? I found that although some of the kiosks I reviewed did implement custom keyboard drivers, not all of them did. The more cheaper products didn't. So in this case, you would actually have quite a viable and very easy attack vector. So here are all the keyboard combinations which produce common dialogues, like Control-B, I, H, L. You can read from the slides. We also have kiosk-specific administrative shortcuts. All of these kiosk products actually have an admin shortcut, like Control-Alt-F8-9 or something like that. That'll pop up a little admin box saying, hey, enter your password, and you can get access to the host OS. Obviously, you can pop up that dialog box. Maybe someone's entered a really dumb password, like password, and get access to the host OS. Now, browser security zones. Now, the browser security model incorporates multiple security zones. We've got the restricted site zone, the internet zone, the intranet zone, and the trusted site security zone. So each security zone adheres to a different security policy. The internet zone, for example, has less ability to interact with the host. Trusted sites and intranet zone typically have more access. So one of the things we can do with this is, as a local user, a user on a kiosk, you're actually capable of accessing all security zones, as long as you type them into the URI entry bar at the top of the page. So we can perform what's called a security zone escalation using the about pluggable protocol handler. So this is actually quite an old handler, which has quite an old bug in it, and it suffers from a cross-site scripting vulnerability. Now what this basically means is that as a user, you can use the about handler to render arbitrary content in a trusted site's security zone. Okay, so what that really boils down to is that if you type this URL, about : input type equal file, into your URI entry bar, you'll get a file browse button pop up that is basically in the trusted site security zone. You click that, you can then browse the file system using a common dialog. Or you can create a link going to the file system, as I showed in the second example, and when you click that, the trusted site security zone will follow that link to the local file system. Now this is a really cool trick because most kiosk vendors only think about the internet security zone. They don't think about local security zones. So you find these other security zones are actually fully unprotected, and you can hack them pretty easily. Okay, the shell protocol handler. The shell protocol handler provides access to Windows web folders. Some more wonderful, amazing Windows functionality. So if you type into your URI bar shell : profile, it'll pop up Explorer and browse to the profile directory, or shell : Windows. So it's a good thing to check, does the kiosk block or handle the shell protocol handler? Another interesting thing I found you can do with the shell protocol handler is reference GUIDs of other controls on your Windows operating system. So for example, if you type in shell : curly brace, and then that long GUID, curly brace, you can actually evoke the Windows control panel by its class ID inside Internet Explorer. So this means, let's say the kiosk has ACLs that block you from accessing control.exe, but they allow you to use the shell protocol handler. You can render the control panel inside IE, bypass the ACLs, without having to need to spawn Explorer, which is a pretty cool trick. I didn't actually know that IE could do that. Okay, so the downside to physical input vectors. Kiosk software is designed to not trust the dude on the keyboard. This is basically what it boils down to. The kiosk user is the most obvious security threat. Hello, I am the most obvious security threat to any kiosk vendor. My research concluded that physical inputs, they're not really so successful. I got a 40 to 50% hit rate using local tricks. They're all the techniques I just told you about. Also, many of these techniques are actually already published. These are unoriginal, already researched things. I am a security researcher, and I go to security cons, and I like to talk about interesting new things I found. I don't want to harp on about this crap that you guys know about. So I sort of continued my research. I continued looking at things and trying to find a new way of hacking a kiosk. And I made a really subtle discovery, really, really subtle. I found out that a remote website is actually not factored into the kiosk security model. It's the ironic thing. So when you're standing at a kiosk, the kiosk will trust the website you're visiting more than you. I'm like, ooh, I got some trust over there. I don't have trust myself. Maybe I can exploit the remote trust. Now, kiosks actually rely on the default web browser security model. So they rely on the default way that IE is set up to protect users when they browse a remote website. So I was like, well, I know what I need. I need a kiosk hacking website. I need a website I can visit from a kiosk that will provide me with all the resources and all the tools I need to hack that kiosk. An online tool you can visit that will basically own a kiosk. So I wrote this thing called ICAT, the Interactive Kiosk Attack Tool. It's first of its kind. This is a brand new method of hacking internet kiosks. And it's really fast, really, really fast. ICAT can pop shell in less than 30 seconds on practically any Windows kiosk product. Works very, very well. And it has a 95 to 100% success rate. I've only found a couple of cases where I've been unable to hack a kiosk. Now, this is actually publicly available. It's free. It's online right now. It's at icat.ha.cked.net. Basically, the rest of this talk is going to be demonstrating and talking about the new attack vectors that ICAT uses. Then I'm going to demo ICAT in use and show you how wonderful and kick-ass it is. OK, so what can ICAT do? Well, I thought to myself, you know, when I stand up at a kiosk terminal, the first thing I really want to know is what type of a terminal am I playing with? So I want to have some reconnaissance information. I want to know, like, what kiosk products I'm playing against, what apps are installed, what attack vectors do I have. So I found a pretty cool technique using JavaScript and the resource protocol handler, is that you can enumerate bitmaps out of PE resources, and then determine if the bitmap exists as to whether or not the executable exists. And if the executable exists, you know that the application is installed. So using this little JavaScript snippet, I can basically use JavaScript to enumerate all of the applications that are installed on the box. So ICAT supports all of the commercial kiosk platforms on Windows. You essentially visit this page from the kiosk, and it'll tell you this is the kiosk you're using, or this is the product the kiosk is based on. It also supports all sort of Microsoft applications, .NET, Java, Windows Media Player, Office. It'll tell you what's installed on the kiosk, which becomes very useful later on when we actually start exploiting the kiosk. We can display local browser variables, so we can determine the underlying kiosk browser technology. So msinet.ocx and winhttp.dll actually display Internet Explorer app versions. You can see in this kiosk that I visited, it says your navigator.app version, app name is Microsoft Internet Explorer. I wasn't actually using IE, I was using a kiosk browser. So this tells me that this kiosk browser is written using standard Microsoft Internet Explorer libraries. This also allows me to detect the presence of the .NET CLR. I can also display remote server variables, so I can discover the remote IP address of the kiosk terminal. Maybe I can see if the kiosk terminal is part of a corporate LAN environment, or if it's on a separate ADSL connection. I have all the common browser dialogues in one place. So I have file open, file save, print, print preview. Basically a big list. You click, 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 and you can see what's blocked by the kiosk and what's not blocked by the kiosk. It's a very fast method of enumerating the blacklist, basically finding holes in the blacklist. That's the whole approach. That's the whole trick, is finding the one thing that's not covered by the blacklist. We can also use Flash to invoke common dialogues. So Adobe Flash is by far the most widely used browser plugin in the world. It's got something like 44 million users or something crazy like that. Now, ActionScript 3 can actually invoke 3 file view containing dialogues. Now, each of these dialogues has a unique dialogue title, such as a select file for upload, select files for upload, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the unique dialogue title is actually quite important because, as I said previously, the kiosks use blacklists of all the in-focus dialogues that are banned or prohibited. So let's say the kiosk is blocking the dialog choose file. It won't be blocking the dialog select file for upload. So you can then bypass the blacklist and get a file view containing dialog to pop up. So the blacklists fail again. Now, spawning applications on the kiosk. Can we cause an application or a process to spawn on the kiosk? Maybe we can use the spawn application to invoke a common dialog. Maybe you can use the spawn application to invoke cmd.exe or browse the file system. So ICAT contains all the default Windows URI handlers. Things like call to, Gopher, HTTP, Telnet, TN3270, rlogin, LDAP, et cetera, et cetera. Now what I've done is I have a little one-click automation button where you click something and basically shit just starts popping up. Everything on the system that can pop up essentially will pop up. So it's a very fast method of just getting something that's not the kiosk browser to pop up. I also support all third-party URI handlers, MMS, Skype, SIP, Play, Stream, QuickTime, etc. So one of the best tricks I found with this is using the HCP control, the HCP command handler. So this is the Help and Support Center. Now if you click a link, such as this link, HTTP dummy, click me, and you click that link, the Help and Support Center will pop up on your Windows operating system. Now, if you use the Help and Support Center and you search for what you want to execute, such as command prompt, you'll get this nice little page which says, oh, the MS-DOS overview. Command prompt is amazing. You can run tools using the command prompt, such and such. Please click here to launch the command prompt. And it gives you a nice left-click only button which will launch the command prompt, which again is really good if you don't have a right-click button. It's also interesting to note that only a couple of the kiosks I tested actually detect this dialog popping up saying Help and Support Center. Most of the kiosks don't actually detect this. So ICAT provides links to over 100 URI handlers. Essentially what I wanted was you could just click down a list, just keep click, 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 and see what happens, and see what pops up, and see what doesn't. You can determine which handlers are covered by the kiosk blacklist and which are not. It also contains all the local security zone handlers. So I was talking about previously, you know, like the control panel inside Internet Explorer. Hey, that's a really cool trick. However, remembering that class ID when I'm at the airport, I'm not going to do. So I thought, well, I may as well just have a web page where all of these things are. So you can basically just go down the list, copy, paste, enter, enter, and see what happens. You can also invoke applications using file type handlers. So let's say you click a file, test.myfile, using IE. Windows will try and spawn the myfile file type handler. Now, ICAT uses DHTML and JavaScript to try and invoke 108 unique file handlers. So you can see that little box that pops up. Essentially, that starts from like a .avi and ends at .x something something. So it tries every common file type in Windows to see if it can get a file type handler to spawn. And as I show you in the demo, this works very effectively for getting third-party applications to pop up, which you can use to escape the kiosk. Now, one of the interesting things that Internet Explorer supports is called promptless handler execution. So give an example here. If you click a file, say test.wmv, you'll find that Internet Explorer will just pop up Windows Media Player. Windows Media Player will just spawn. There won't be any dialogue. There won't be any prompt saying, hey, you know, are you sure you want to spawn Windows Media Player? It'll just pop up. Now, this is really useful for us because the kiosk is monitoring all of these prompt pop-ups. It's monitoring everything that appears. So if we can get an application to launch without that prompt, then we have a higher chance of getting around the kiosk blacklist. This is decided or chosen by the edit flags Boolean variable that's set into the file type handler. If the third bit is a 1, you don't get any prompt. So I thought, hey, this is really cool. I can get Windows Media Player to pop up on a kiosk. What can I do with Windows Media Player? What cool functionality does Windows Media Player have? I found this very interesting thing called Web Enhanced Content. So I can have a Windows Media Player playlist file that says, hey, actually, I'm just referencing a website. Windows Media Player will say, oh, you've clicked on Web Enhanced Content. The exact phrase is, the enhanced content you're about to play uses the following web page. You should only open web pages from sources that you trust. This little dialog box pops up. Now, interesting to note here that none of the kiosks I tested actually detect that dialog box popping up. However, when you click yes, you'll see in this second little picture there, Windows Media Player pops up, and there's a website inside it. Essentially, what you can do is use Windows Media Player as a browser. That's just really useful because when Windows Media Player is a browser, it doesn't contain any of the kiosk security controls. You get a native or a virgin browser, which is very, very easy to break out of, and much easier than the kiosk browser. So we can use a third-party application to become a browser and then escape back to the file system. OK, ICAT and Office documents. Pretty much, I determined if you have an Office file type viewer installed on a kiosk, you win, hands down. So I found this a pretty nifty little trick that you can embed an arbitrary executable inside pretty much any Office document file format, from doc, docx, xls, xslb, et cetera, et cetera. And when you open up the document inside your Word file type viewer, you'll see this little icon like this. says cmd.exe. You can tell like, that there's a package or that there's something there. And if you double-click that, this little dialog box pops up saying, open package contents. You know, the package you're about to open will run a program. This program could do anything. It could harm your computer. Interesting to note that none of the kiosks I tested against actually detect that dialog box again. So I have, or ICAT contains all these different document files that have a patched version of cmd.exe, which does not validate the disable cmd registry key. So if the kiosk disables cmd, essentially you get an Office document, you click the link, shell pops up, you win. Okay, ICAT and Java applets. Now, a signed Java applet can actually execute a local process. Now, we can detect if the JRE is installed by using the ICAT reconnaissance technique, which I first talked about. And if it is, well, we can get a Java app to spawn. Now, does the kiosk detect the Java security warning prompt? As you can imagine, no. None of the kiosks I tested actually detected the prompt saying warning security, which I thought would be pretty fucking obvious, right? I mean, this is glaring attack vector. So you get this prompt pops up. It says, you know, are you sure you want to run this? You click run, you get a command shell. You win. Now, ICAT contains signed kiosk-specific Java applets. I got apps to spawn all different types of executables. And I also have a copy of Jython, which is GNU Citizen's Python inside a Java applet. So essentially what you can do is spawn a Java applet which has an inline Python interpreter inside it and start executing native Python code on the kiosk. And then, well, you really win then. I mean, you have Python. OK, ActiveX. Now, safe for scripting ActiveXs can be used to compromise a kiosk. We can have an unsafe method inside an object, such as object.execute cmd.exe. So the trick becomes, can we install a malicious ActiveX on the kiosk? So what I did was I wrote, well, the ICAT ActiveX. So it's a safe for scripting ActiveX which executes arbitrary executables. I wouldn't recommend you install this on your home computer. It's not secure. It's purposely not secure. But if you walk up to a kiosk and you have administrative authority and you have the ability to install an ActiveX, you install my ActiveX and then use it to spawn a command prompt. Really easy. Now, currently you do require administrative authority. That's kind of the catch. Now, IE8 is changing things a little bit in the fact that you won't require administrative authority under IE8 to spawn or to install a new ActiveX. Users will be able to install an ActiveX. So potentially this will be more of a valuable attack vector in the future. Now, ICAT and Click Once. Click Once is .NET 2.0 plus technology. It's essentially Microsoft's online application deployment. It's kind of like the evolution of ActiveX, or ActiveX meets .NET. Essentially, what it means is that an unsigned Click Once application will execute on your system with full trust and can spawn arbitrary processes. Well, that sounds like really cool functionality. I like that. So users are warned. There is a dialog box that pops up. You know, application runs security warning. This publisher cannot be verified. Are you sure you want to run this application? As you can imagine, 0% of the kiosks I tested actually managed to detect this dialog box either. Now, this does require that the kiosk has the .NET CLR installed. Now, this sort of is a bit of a problem for older kiosks, but not for newer kiosks. I found that 4 out of my 10 tested kiosks were actually written in .NET. So they had .NET CLR 2 present. So you could click a link, and the Click Once apps would just start running. Now, I was so impressed by the power I had with Click Once and really the ability I had to own kiosks really, really fast. I said, well, I'm going to need to write some really cool Click Once tools. So I wrote 3 pretty nifty little Click Once.NET apps. The first I wrote was an embedded web browser. So using the same idea as the Microsoft Media Player trick of having a web browser inside a third-party application, we can spawn a web browser inside a Click Once application. We then get a virgin web browser that we can then escape out of. I have a Click Once app called the Application Executor, which will just spawn arbitrary executables. It'll spawn CMD, command.com, Explorer, spawn whatever you want, give you shell. And I also have an access token pincher. So access token hijacking is a pretty hip subject these days. This is essentially where you can have a network service user that is, in theory, lower privilege, which has access to the SE impersonate privilege on the local system and is capable of impersonating a system privileged token. What this really boils down to is that as a network service user, I can impersonate system and spawn a command shell. So I wrote this little tool called Access Token Pincher. and you basically click a button and you get a system shell, which is win, right? You got system. You got more fucking privilege than the kiosk. Okay, so who here has ever crashed a web browser? Show of hands. Oh, three people. Ooh. What kind of web browsers do you guys use? So I call this attack emo kiosking. Essentially, the goal is to create an unhandled exception in a kiosk browser. Now, if the kiosk browser crashes, it freaks out, it crashes, and then you get the desktop. Well, you win. This is a pretty rare situation. This is a situation where denial of service vulnerability becomes a highly critical attack vector. So ICAT contains common browser crash techniques. There's the published exploits which result in a crash. Memory exhaustion, I've got a couple of integer overflows, different tricks and techniques. These are fairly reliable, 40 to 50% chance of testing kiosk crash or reboot. I thought, yeah, 40 to 50% is pretty good, but I want 100%. I want something which will reliably crash pretty much any browser in the world. So I started researching on Flash. Of course, Flash being the most popular plugin, well, in the world. Everyone here has Flash installed, right? Yeah? Yeah. Okay. So my goal and my thinking was, can I create a Flash file that will reliably crash a browser? So I performed sequential byte file format fuzzing of the SWF file format. Essentially what I did was I took a valid SWF file and I sequentially replaced each byte with different fuzz data, and then I tried to render that file inside a browser to see if I could create an exception. Turns out, yes, I can. I found multiple files that created unhandled exceptions within the Flash player and would reliably crash Flash on OS X, Linux, Windows, AIX, Solaris, pretty much any platform, anything to be honest, and pretty much any version of Flash. The exact vulnerability or the exact attack was an integer divided by 0 vulnerability. So I mean, this isn't really exploitable to get code execution, but this is exploitable in our situation where we can make something crash. So I created what I call the ICAT Auto Magic Flash Crasher. If the Flash plugin is installed, ICAT will crash it. It works. It's guaranteed, O-Day magic. Now, Adobe have technically resolved this vulnerability in Flash Player 10RC. I guess when that finally becomes final in, I don't know, 6 to 9 months, this bug will no longer work. However, a lot of kiosks, well, they don't really get patched very often, and people always run an older version. So this turned out to be a very valuable, a very effective attack vector. So let's assume something worked. Let's assume you have access to the kiosk file system. You got a command shell to spawn, you got a common dialog, Java installed. Something worked, something spawned. You went, wow, I've got a command prompt. What now? What's your next logical step? You're sitting at the kiosk, wow, I've got a command prompt. Whoa. So the next thing you really need to do is download additional tools and binaries onto it. If you want to be malicious, you want to get your keylogger on there. Maybe you want to get Metasploit on there. Maybe you want to get some local privilege escalation. You want to try and get the system. You want to try and further own the kiosk, maybe further own the network. But you run into a bit of a problem here. How do you download tools in a toolless environment? So the kiosk terminal will not have a copy of wget.exe present. They're not going to give you native tools that you can use to download other tools. Internet Explorer is likely going to be uninstalled or disabled. And file downloads will definitely be disabled. So how do you download files on Windows? This is a pretty old school problem. So the first thing I found was that you can actually download a file using a common dialog. I didn't know you could do this. This is kind of funky Windows functionality. So if you get a choose file or a file browse, file view controlling, file open dialog to pop up, you can attach a remote file. So you can attach a file from http:// whatever, and Windows will use WebDAV or FPSC and download that file, save it locally, and then allow you to attach it. So you can see in the first screenshot there, I've attached cmd.exe, and you see in the little screenshot at the bottom, the directory of C:documents and settings, kiosk user, local settings, temporary internet files, content.ie5, and content value. I have cmd square brackets 1 bracket. So it downloaded the file for me because it expected me to attach it from a remote resource. That's pretty handy. So Windows will download content for you. We can also use Flash to download files. Who would have thought? So as I said previously, most kiosks disable file downloads within the browser security policy. This is pretty much the first thing any kiosk vendor does. And they say, well, we're going to go into IE security settings here, and we go file download disable. Whoa, now we're secure. And when you try and download a file, Windows pops up a little box saying, well, your current security settings do not allow this file to be downloaded. However, if you use Flash and you use the file reference object and you say, Flash, download this file for me, it will. It doesn't validate or cross-reference with the browser security policy at all. So if you have Flash installed, you can basically bypass that element of the browser security policy, which lets you download arbitrary files. That's a pretty cool trick. This has a very, very high success rate against kiosks. Actually, this works on any kiosk that disables file downloads, which is pretty powerful. This is also another unpublished trick. Yeah, it's a cool trick. Very, very cool trick. You can also use Notepad to download and upload files. So same trick as the common dialog attaching a file. You got a file open in Notepad, and you open a 7-bit safe text file from a remote website. Notepad will download that file and show it to you. I thought, wow, that's kind of handy. That's kind of cool trick. But what about uploading content? Let's say you break into a kiosk, and you're browsing around, and you find creditcards.txt or creditcards.log or money transaction or something juicy. And you're like, ooh, this is really big log file. I want this back at my home server. You go File, Save, and you save it to your remote website. And Windows will use FPSC and WebDAV and try and upload that file to a remote resource. So you can upload and download content using Notepad. Who would have thought? So the number one problem with kiosk hacking is you're in a toolless environment. So I said, man, I need to provide lots and lots of tools for kiosk hackers. So I provided a bunch of assorted kiosk hacking tools. I have patched copies of cmd.exe, which won't validate or check the disabled cmd reg key, which allows you to run it if cmd.exe has been disabled. I got tools that will enable the start bar if it's been hidden. I got tools that will spawn different applications and different things on the kiosk for you. I have a group policy bypass technique, which uses Mark Russianovich's DLL injection, which gets past group policy for disabling CMD. And I have a little harmless pop-up that pops up saying, uh-oh, someone hacked this kiosk, just in case you want to leave a marker or a bit of a tag. All the tools are available as .exe.zip using the Flash download trick, which will bypass, of course, download restrictions, and also 7-bit safe VB script. So you can download all the tools using Notepad, and then execute the VB script. And what I do is I use VB script and the FSO, the file system object, to recreate original binary contents on disk, and then execute it. Essentially, it's a VB script that pops shell. So command shell detours. When I started trying to pop a command shell, I realized that most kiosks are actually set up in a way that they don't allow you access to cmd.exe, or maybe command.com. They've blocked access to this. So I thought to myself, how many ways are there to spawn a command shell on Windows? I was able to actually come up with 17 different methods. So you can use loadfix.com space start.exe will spawn a command shell. You can create a service and then call the service. You can create a timer and then have a service be installed after 1 minute and then execute. You can do start loadfix.com cmd.exe. You can just type %comspec%. So there's heaps and heaps of different methods of popping a command shell. So I try to integrate into all my tools this sort of approach of trying every single method. It won't just try and pop cmd.exe. It'll try every single method of spawning command shells. As you'll see in my demo, this usually results in not one command shell popping, but 50, which is really good. And this is also flawless at bypassing kiosk ACL. So any kiosk that I tested that has some of these native ACL protections that stop you from launching cmd.exe, yeah, this will nicely get around it. OK, so I officially released ICAT at DEF CON 16 about 2 months ago in Las Vegas. Now, a funny story. When I arrived in the Las Vegas airport, I saw a kiosk terminal. I was like, ooh, they use kiosks here. Oh, this is pretty cool. And I noticed that the kiosk product was actually one of the 10 that I had initially targeted my ICAT tool against. I was thinking, oh, that's going to be really effective. I'm going to be able to hack that very fast. Well, it turns out I could hack it in about 10 seconds. So I made the mistake during my talk at DEF CON in mentioning this. And I told the DEF CON audience, I can own any kiosk here in Vegas in 10 seconds. Well, it turns out Riviera, the Bellagio, Sahara, Caesars, everyone uses these kiosks. These kiosks were the most popular deployed kiosks in Las Vegas. So the kiosk in the Riviera is the one at the top that has the little command shell popped up. Someone hacked that about 10 seconds after my talk. And then the IT guys came down and they fixed it. And someone went back and they hacked it again. And this cat and mouse game repeated for about, I don't know, a few hours. I left the hotel as fast as possible. I was like, because I don't want to be around here. And then the cops were called. And the cops arrived, and what the cops were doing was they were standing around the kiosk and stopping people from using their cell phones. Because what people were doing was they were hacking it and then taking a photo. And the cops were like, oh, you're hacking it with your cell phone. So yeah, I thought that was pretty amusing. So since my original launch of iCat, I've had over 14,000 unique hits. Now, that's not really so many. However, 10 to 15% of my hits have been from kiosks. So that's a lot of kiosks have been hacked so far. Hell of a lot. Interesting to see some of the people that have been using iCat. Reception.sitekiosks.com, one of my biggest users. That's probably one of the biggest kiosk vendors. So the vendors have seen my tool and are basically going out there and trying to secure their product against it, which is a good thing. It's a good move in the right direction and certainly makes the game a bit harder. We can see that Boston University, they've had 2 kiosks hacked. Kiosk at Seattle Airport, that got hacked. Got some interesting hits from army.pentagon.mil. It's kind of like, whoa, we're pissed off. Also, the security community is getting quite interested in this. So I'm getting hits from Juniper, Core Security, and also security auditing companies. Definitely a lot of companies in New Zealand have been using iCat to audit kiosk security, and so have Deloitte and yeah, a bunch of other people. Now, one of the things I've done, and one of the real big feedbacks I've had from people, is that they say, well, iCat's really cool, I like this. However, I don't want to use your tool when I'm penetration testing for my client, because that's not really very professional. You know, I can't disclose this information to you. So I'd really like a copy of iCat. Could you give it to me? So I was like, well, yeah, sure. So I now have what I call iCat Portable. This is a complete copy of the iCat website inside a zip file. This is mostly because people were using wget and basically trying to download my entire bloody website and putting it straight on my server. So yeah, it's free. It's freely available. You can go to the website, download it, and use it for yourself. So it becomes very useful if you're penetration testing a kiosk in a closed network environment, maybe where you don't have internet access, or you just don't want to use my particular tool. I would do ask that you don't like rip my name off it, or put your own name on it and pimp it as your own. But yeah, use it. Also, give me feedback. I have functionality in the iCat website to tell me about things. I really am pro tapping into the kiosk hacking community. One of the biggest things I've found is that usually after I give this talk, a bunch of people come up to me afterwards and go, wow, man, I've been hacking kiosks for years, and I never knew this, or did you know this? And they share tricks with me. So I have feedback, so you can give feedback to me. And one of the other things I've implemented recently is submit your ponage. What I have is a Google Maps overlay. It's where essentially you can say, I hacked the kiosk in this airport. Submit from anonymous such and such, and how you hacked it. And you can place a little pin on my Google Maps, and you can show the world your kiosk hacking steez, which is pretty cool, too. OK, so the demos, kiosk hacking demos. You guys ready for some shell? OK, I have 11 minutes. Perfect. OK, this is my kiosk. Doesn't really look like much, I have a browser window. It's actually a pretty ugly kiosk. It's not one of the more attractive ones. Yeah, there's not a whole lot we can do. If we try and unlock the kiosk, it'll prompt us for a username and a password. We can start program, or we can start Google. OK, so I may as well pop up Google. So I'm going to Google New Zealand, and I'm going to search for iCat space Paul Craig. Hang on. My VM may be missing a network adapter. Yeah, my VM's missing a network adapter. Connected host only, that works. VM, connect. Might help, huh? Okay, DH client at 0. OK, so I have a bit of a rule with this. Live demos, if you've ever done a live demo before, you know that shit doesn't work sometimes. So you guys, in order to show your appreciation for my courage here, every time I pop shell, you clap, OK? Pretty easy. OK, fingers crossed now. I go back. Awesome, OK. So now it works. So full screen again. OK, so I'm actually the first hit for iCat. It's pretty cool. Okay, and we get ICANN. Welcome to ICANN. Now, a few people have said the image is a little, yeah, get over it. Okay, the first thing we want to do is I want to know what type of kiosk I'm playing with. So I detect, go to Reconnaissance, Installed Applications. It tells me you're using Internet Kiosk Pro. Internet Kiosk Pro is installed to this directory. You have Windows Media Player 11, NetMeeting, and MSN Messenger, and Microsoft Movie Maker currently installed on your kiosk. Okay. So I can go to the local browser variables. I can see, okay, my Microsoft app version here, I have an embedded web browser from bsalsa.com. My platform is Win32, my user agent, my screen height, my screen definition, all that stuff. Okay, that's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. Let's go to Common Dialogues. Oh, okay, I can pop up a file open dialog. Maybe I can browse to // So let's try some real simple tricks. So I double click on my computer. Huh, there's no // Okay, my file name, // We see the autocomplete tells us that those directories are present. If I try and browse to that, ooh, restrictions. This operation has been canceled due to restrictions in effect on this computer. Oh no, they've thwarted me. So I go back, okay, maybe file save dialog. Okay, so it's the same thing. What they've done is they've implemented native Windows controls to basically stop you from browsing the local file system. Well, that's pretty effective. Let's try Flash Common Dialogues. So I've got all these different Flash dialogues. Wow, exact same thing. Yeah, it's not really so handy here. Let's try URI handlers. Okay, so I can see common URI handlers. I have this enormous list here of different URI handlers. What I can do is I can click auto execution of all native URI handlers. This will try and spawn stuff, right? It's my approach of just getting shit to just pop up. If I can get shit to pop up, whoa, I can use it to escape the file system. So I have the help and support center. This is pretty easy, using command. Stupid kiosk disables the backspace key. Right, using command prompt. Then it searches and it finds it. Yeah, jeez, more shit pops up. Fuck. Yeah, so, ooh, yeah, okay, so you guys get the drift. This is too easy, though. This is way too easy. I mean, I don't want to demo something easy to you guys. Maybe I'll pop shell really fast, but then I want to do something a little, yeah, so using command prompt. Yeah, that's what it is. And, ooh, click to open the command prompt. Click start, and then click command prompt. Command prompt window. Open the command prompt. Oh, shell. That's an easy one. That's an easy one. That's an easy one. We can do better than this. We can do better than this. Okay, let's try for Java applets. Maybe it's Java installed. Can I execute the command? Ah, okay, all right. I don't have Java installed. Okay, maybe ActiveX. Oh, okay, all right. ActiveX won't install. All right, that's cool. Maybe click once. Okay, so that pops out. That means .NET's not installed. It didn't detect the click once stuff. So that's cool. Just keep going down the list. I've got a big list of things to try here. Let's try downloading some of my tools. cmd.exe. I downloaded that. Oh, current security restrictions do not allow this file type to be downloaded. All right. Let's download that using Flash. Thank you. Ooh, okay. Now, I can't save it to // however, I do have my desktop available. So I'll save it to my desktop. Hey, and I got cmd.exe. Oh, do you want to run that? Ooh, didn't detect this pop-up, and I got a shell again. Well, let's try something a little fancier. Let's try my command shell detour app. Save that to the local file system. So this should try and pop a few shells. Let's see how many shells we can pop. Do you run this? Yes. Sure. Okay, so I get more shells. Okay. What else is of interest? Actually, I'm going to call it quits for this kiosk. I'm going to flick to another kiosk now, which has a few more interesting attack vectors. So that kiosk is pretty much iron on me going, yeah, I got like more shells than I know how to count. Okay, next one. So hopefully I have a network adapter installed on this one. Okay, Craig. Hey, awesome. All right, I'll find that. So this kiosk is slightly different. I don't actually have any start menu. I have nothing really to interact or to click with. You can also tell that it's not licensed currently. Oh, no. So first thing is stored applications. We are playing with KiowWare Kiosk Basic. We have Microsoft Media Player 11. We have NetMeeting, .NET Framework 1 and 2, MSN Messenger, and Microsoft Movie Maker currently installed. We can go to Common Dialogues. Maybe we can pop up a Common Dialogue. Oh, nothing happens. You see that? Nothing happens. Click it. Nothing happens. Ooh. Maybe Flash Common Dialogue. Maybe I can pop up a Flash Common Dialogue. nothing happens. So it's blocking these common dialogues from popping up, which is a pretty effective attack technique. Okay, maybe I can try something else here. Firstly, can I download a file? Can I download a copy of cmd.exe? Ooh, this file's being blocked. Bad hacker, no biscuit. Okay, can I use Flash to download it? No. The common control that pops up when Flash says, do you want to save this file, has been blocked. So I can't download files using this. Okay, all right. Now, I know that I have the .NET CLR installed from my initial reconnaissance step. So I'm going to start trying to use some of my click once tools, my .NET tools. So the first thing I'm going to try and use is the iCat embedded web browser. Click this. Hey, I get a web browser. Now, who can spot the obvious thing here? Yeah? Anyone? Maybe the start bar? You guys now see the start bar? Yeah? So one of the little tricks with Microsoft products is that some libraries and some common system tools actually check to see if the start bar, the tray menu, is in focus. And if it's not, they make it in focus. So this particular thing is that if you spawn a click once application, the library will say, oh, the start bar is not there, here you go. So we get a start bar. So, well, that's fucking too easy. I'm not even going to bother exploiting that. So what I'm going to show you is using this inline web browser here to then do the exact same sort of tricks and the exact same text. So the first thing I'm going to try is downloading a file. Maybe I can download a file using my command browser. So I'm going to try download the command shell detours. Hey. And now I can just download it. Run. Shells. Okay. Let's do something a little more juicy. Now, I told you guys I had some Flash OD, and I can make any browser crash, and this is a really cool trick. Let's actually use this to exploit a kiosk and escape out of the kiosk browser. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to crash a kiosk. About 2 minutes 30. Automagic Flash crasher. Click. OK. Spawn, pop, crash. Wait for it. Comes back. Ooh, it's sneaky. Ooh, we got a real one here. OK. So let's do this again. You guys may have noticed there's a bit of a race condition there. I had maybe 2 seconds that I had the desktop before the kiosk browser came back. OK, so I'm pretty quick. I wonder if I can beat the race condition. So I'm going to crash a kiosk. Automagic Flash crasher. Thank you. The start bar's about there. Thank you. Auto crash, run, start programs, accessories, command prompt. Hey, easy. Okay, I might actually just stop there. We have 1 minute 30 left, so maybe if anyone has any questions, questions about kiosks or kiosk hacking in general, they want to ask me. Come on, someone's got to have a question. Yes, you sir.
Has your site been blocked?
Oh, that's a good point. Yes, it has. This is another reason I'm releasing iCat Portable, is that some kiosk vendors have actually taken to adding in their blacklist icat.ha.cked.net. Well, that's not going to work. So I've given it to everyone in the world now, so you can host your own copy. Maybe Google can cache that, and then we can get around their blacklist again. Same trick, different method. Any other questions?
Have you seen any kiosks that use software restriction policies?
Oh, I haven't. OK, so that's a good question. I haven't seen any of the 10 kiosks I tested didn't use it. However, I have seen commercially set up kiosks or custom set up kiosks that do use SRP.
Are there holes that you know of for those?
As a what, sir?
Are there holes that you know of that you can exploit to get around SRP?
Around SRP? Yes, there is an SRP bypass. It escapes from mine, but yes, it is. It was one of the things on my attack list, my attack vectors, but it really wasn't used enough in the commercial kiosk products in order to justify it. I had so many different bloody things to research that, yeah, it's definitely something I will look into, though. Expect more shells. Anything else?
What's the panic button on your website?
Oh, the panic button. That's really cute, actually. So let me show you really quickly. So let's say I'm at an airport. I'm hacking away. I'm getting my own on, and I'm feeling really good. I'm killing time and stuff. And TSA come along. And they're like, oh, I see them coming. Oh, shit, what are they doing? Click here, and it takes me to Google. Yes! So it takes you to Google. So you're like, whoa, panic. I didn't do nothing. Which is, yeah, it's nice and subtle. Nice little trick. Any other questions? Excellent. Well, thank you very much. You've been a very nice audience.